Here. Chapman.
Here.
Eckberg.
Here.
Khan.
Here.
Morrison.
Here.
Seifert.
Here.
Steeram.
Here.
This evening, we're privileged to have some students and their families from Graham Sanborn School, and the principal, Jeff Brown, will come up and introduce those students and tell us a little about them.
Whoops. And a future student. Totally cute.
President Babcock, Dr. Thompson, members of the Board of Education, I'm extremely proud to stand before you this evening. We have representatives of last year's second grade bilingual class at Sanborn School. They're currently third graders. We'll call them graduates of our 1-2 bilingual classroom self-contained. The reason these students are here representing the cohort is because last year, at the end of the year, the entire cohort, not just these 5 gentlemen, represented by Diego, Kevin, Cesar, Anthony, and Eduardo. But when we look at their mathematics performance across students, across their age-appropriate cohort across the United States of America, our bilingual students actually outperformed, according to NWEA, and on a test that's in their second language, they outperformed all students across the United States of America. And so I would like to congratulate all of these students and everybody else in the class for their hard work. I'd like to thank the parents for their support, and it certainly would be proper for me to recognize Mrs. Lukowski, who couldn't join us this evening, but Mr. Cahill as well, who is one of our bilingual teachers who helped lead these kids in such achievement. So I'm really excited to have them stand up before you and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Nice job. Board of Education has its hand. Thank you for coming tonight. Keep up the good work. Those are pretty impressive math scores. Congratulations. Thanks for coming. The first item in my section tonight is the recommendation to engage the services of a financial advisor. I asked Mr. Adamczyk to come up and tell us a little about that.
Good afternoon. Superintendent Thompson, members of the board, there is a agreement in your board packet tonight from William Blair for financial advisory services should the board decide to issue life safety bonds. We discussed this at the August board meeting. The agreement provides $1.50 per $1,000 par amount of bonds issued with a minimum amount of $15,000. So if the board would issue $20 million of bonds, the fee would be $30,000. And there is no, and if the board issues no bonds at all, then there's no financial obligation to the board at all. So straightforward agreement, really. Again, only becomes effective if the board decides to issue bonds for life safety projects.
We needed to have this in place in the event that the board decide to issue bonds. And Mike asked 3 reputable companies to submit bids. William Blair was the cheapest, least expensive. And what we're doing, we're just having the financial advisor in place should the board decide to issue those bonds to pay for life safety. So that's what we're doing tonight. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Adamczyk. Next item in my section is the student enrollment update. It's Dr. Barmini.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Babcock, and members of the board. Tonight, I'm here to present two things. One is an enrollment update, and then the second is the student assignment plan, which is included in your materials. So as of August 28th, that was when the snapshot was taken and the information gathered to be presented before you. We had 11,974 students enrolled, kindergarten through 8th grade, in this fine district, District 15. We had an additional 177 students in the early childhood program at Conyers Learning Academy, and that brings our total up to 12,151 students to start off the 15-16 school year. But judging by what I saw earlier with Principal Brown's presentation, we might have increased by at least one student. So we might be at 12,152. In terms of looking at what that annual change in enrollment is between this year and last year, we're down by 23 students. When you're talking about 12,000 total students, statistically, that's a very small margin. As well as if you look at this from a 5-year perspective, we're down 93 kids. So once again, even though it's a downward trend, it's not a statistically significant downward trend where we have to consider making difficult decisions about programming and classrooms and things of that nature. So that's the first piece of what I wanted to present tonight. The second piece deals with the student assignment plan, and that's how we go about providing services, instructional services and other services to those 12,000 students. What we've looked at in terms of that plan is looking at building it based on several assumptions, and perhaps the most important are Board of Education class size targets. And just to review what those targets are, in kindergarten, that's 20. In grades 1 through 3, it's 24 students. In grades 4 through 6, it's 26. And then in our junior high, so in grades 7 and 8, it's 28 students. And that's a target. That's what what you have set in terms of how we need to administratively set up and situate our resources to meet the needs of kids. And as with any target, it's something that we aim for. Sometimes we hit it, and most of the time we do. But sometimes we're over, and sometimes we're under. And in terms of how we average out across the district in regular ed, if the district board target is 20 in kindergarten, and this is in the third page of the materials that were prepared and shared with you, we're at 20.2 kids. So we're 0.2 students. And don't ask me what 0.2 of a student would look like, but we are slightly above board target there. But then if you take a look everywhere else, our district regular ed primary average is 23.9. That's lower than the 24. Board target there. Our district intermediate average is 24.8. That's a full one student lower. And once again, the average is taken by looking at all students within those grade levels and doing the average, as well as our junior high. We're down approximately 2 students below the board target there. So all in terms of general ed, we are slightly, but statistically not that significantly over board target in terms of kindergarten, but we're below board target in all other areas, which is definitely good news. Now, the information that you have in your packets, once again, a target being something that we aim for, there are going to be classes that are going to be over that, and there are going to be classes that are under that. In terms of the classes that are over that for Gen Ed, there are 3 classrooms that we know of right now that are at or over 30 students in enrollment. That information, actually 4, that information is included in the packet as well, with 3 sections at Central Road and 1 section of Gen Ed at Mary and Jordan. The other remaining classes at the elementary level that are at or over 30 are gifted classrooms, 3 of which are at Hunting Ridge, and then 1 of which is at Frank C. Whiteley. And what we do in situations where we have high class sizes is the principals work with their staff, and then they work with us at central office to determine how they can appropriately support those increased enrollments, and that's typically through allocating existing paraprofessional allocations or PA allocations to meet the needs of kids in the classrooms, as well as to get creative in terms of using additional resources like reading specialists, bilingual resources in some instances, and even special ed resource to offset the increased enrollment in those programs. So although the class sizes are high, we're confident that we're meeting the needs of the kids in those sections. But just like anything else, we're going to continuously review and monitor that, and if we determine that we need to look at doing things differently in any one of those classrooms, a recommendation will be made in terms of ways that we can go about to provide that additional support. In terms of our bilingual program, the good news there is that we are also under the board target, and this is the third or fourth page in. By law, by state law, we're required to staff our bilingual programs in kindergarten, first, and second grades at 90% of the regular education target that's established. So if the reg ed target in gen ed kindergarten is 20, 90% of that's 18. 24 is the board target for first through third. 90% of that is 21.6. And in both instances, in terms of our bilingual, our fine bilingual programming, serving our kindergarten, we are at least 0.9 or almost 1 full student below the average there, and then we're close to 3 students below the average in terms of the district bilingual primary grades 1 through 3. We do not have any overages in Gen Ed first through 3 there. We are working on a situation at one of our schools, Lincoln, where we have a pretty high number actually of students in kindergarten that Dr. Wolfel and I just discussed right before the meeting in terms of what we're going to need to do to support that classroom, and we're working in conjunction with the teacher and Principal Kneppel to address that. Other than that, when we look at the totality of FTE, full-time teaching equivalent, that have been allocated to meet the needs of the 12,000 students that I referenced, we had budgeted 889.67. Once again, that's 889.67 FTE. In terms of meeting the needs, we're actually 1.0 FTE over that, and we're approximately, therefore, at 890.67. So in terms of what we budgeted and what we are in terms of right now actual, we are 1.0 FTE over what we planned for. In a district of this size, with the number of fine programs that it has to support a multitude of student needs, 1.0 FTE over, what we had planned for is actually quite good. So, I'm quite pleased with that, and I'd like to recognize several other people, because I couldn't get to this point where I'm presenting this without the help of a lot of people, because none of us are as smart as all of us. And that would be Dr. Wolfel and then Ms. Sue Gehring, in terms of our world language and ELL programs and special ed programs, really helped put this together, as well as Dr. McClurkin, in terms of our extended day, or EDK, which is a kindergarten program that serves to support kids that might be struggling in that area. So it was a group effort, and happy to present and share this information with you this evening.
So first,
Thank you, Matt.
thanks for that information. Just a couple of things. First of all, typically we've had 10 or 11 classes in general ed over the 30. So good job on controlling that and bringing it down to 4. While I'd like to see even those 4 not be there, unfortunately, it is what it is. There is a couple of questions I do have. In the past, we've seen where when there is overage, especially in a gifted special requirements class, you've taken certain kids and offered them to move to a different school to keep the numbers still at the target level. Is that something that was investigated in this particular case?
That's always an option, but it's not very often accepted.
Absolutely.
If there's room at another gifted site, they could transfer. Of course, some of these kids are in their second year of the gifted program, or even third or fourth. So,
Right.
But that is an option that's given to them.
Okay. So it is something that was presented.
Yeah.
And you mentioned we were about 1 FTE over. So where was that FTE over in terms of, was it regular ed, gifted, language arts, special languages? Where do we know where that overage was? At 1?
Matt, wasn't that a regular ed?
Yeah, we've had a number of reductions and a number of additions to net out at that +1. So it's very difficult to say what it was when you have to combine the needs of everything. But the last addition that we made was a gen ed addition over at Willow Bend, because we had an unanticipated enrollment of 8 kids the week before the start of school in the 5th, 6th split classrooms there, the multi-age, multi-grade classrooms, which led us to post the 1.0 and move from 5 sections of gen ed, 5th, 6th, multi-age to 6, bringing the average from 31 down to 25 in those classrooms.
So I also want, for the sake of everyone, want to mention one more piece. While we saw the enrollment decline 23, it's not at one school, it's across, so we can't cut one FTE because of that reduction. So completely understood. I think it's a job well done in trying to, keep the number low in terms of our excess and still keep meeting the target. So good job on that.
Thank you. It's always a struggle to try to balance the budget and keep the expenditures down, but also to provide the best education. And Matt and I struggle all the time trying to figure out whether we should add a teacher or not in specific spots. And Matt did an excellent job this year, really trying to make it work in a way that serves kids, but also kept our costs down. So thank you.
Matt, just a quick question. How common is it where you have 2 grades in one class because of kind of under enrollment? I think you just mentioned that. Does that happen ever when you have, how often does that happen?
So are you referring to the multi-age classes?
Yeah, that's what.
Well, Willow Bend is a school that's completely multi-age, and several schools in the district have had multi-age classes. And so Willow Bend, where he referenced them going from 2 sections to 3, or 4 to 5, that has been a multi-grade school for years and years.
Many.
Peggy's son went there.
And not looked at, wasn't designed for that. I mean, a real positive in many situations too, because you have the mix of the kids in there, the 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it was always very positive.
There's high level of satisfaction
And
in Willow
it's-
Bend, and most other multi-age classes.
Yeah, it's worked in some places. Some places it has not been highly, successful. But Willow Bend, I know, is one of those schools that it has
done it
worked
for
over
many
years.
The other question, Matt, is this is shared decision-making that's made on the school, at the school levels as well, correct? Between the principals and staff as
Yeah,
well, as
yeah.
far as where we're going to help and make additions to classrooms where needed on these larger class sizes, or Scott, I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah, no, I think that's the process that we expect principals to go through, is to talk to their staffs and see, and, they can advocate for their buildings, and then we'll make the final decision. But in the example of Willow Bend, it was a collaborative decision. They talked to the teachers, initially thought that it would be better not to split the kids up after they started the school year with one teacher, but then as everyone sat down together, they thought, no, really, it's going to be best for kids if we establish one more section, and so that's what they asked for us, and we hired a teacher to do that.
No, I think that's the beauty, part of the beauty of the process as well, that everyone has buy-in on it, so thank you.
Just a comment. If you look at the numbers, you note that the enrollment at the lower levels is significantly lower than, so it looks, at first blush, it appears as though if we lose 1,300 eighth graders next year and we only have about 800 kindergarten students, that we're going to drop down significantly. But it is part of our community is that students move in, and those numbers tend to not drop because as kids, families tend to move in when their kids are enrolled at the elementary level. And so I assume that we anticipate that same pattern to continue.
We're going to monitor it, and I do think that we should pretty much stay at the same level we are
Yeah,
going
I think
forward. I would anticipate that.
I also think if, we do go to the full-day kindergarten, all the children who are going to some private schools would start earlier, so you'll not see that reduction, because most of them come in first grade.
That's an
and
excellent point,
yeah,
because
most of them will come in
the
first
kindergarten
grade.
numbers are artificially low.
Yeah, just because it's a part-time kindergarten program.
Dave?
Scott, in the past, I think a couple of years ago, we had a group of 5th and 6th graders at Jane Addams where we sort of targeted the next year when they went in, I think when they went from 5th to 6th, we sort of added another segment to split up the high numbers. I think we were, at that time, we had 31 or 32 in some classes. Would that be the plan as we look at gifted going into 6th, 7th, or 7th, 8th grade next year to, let's open up another segment to separate so we don't have the high numbers?
So the same kids aren't in the big
In the
classes
big
year
high
after year.
classes, year in and year out. And it seemed for a while we had, I know over on the east side of town, we had 3 or 4 classes that traditionally had 31, 30, and it just kept following them. And I think last year, 2 years ago, we took a step to open up another segment, so they weren't 31 kids. It brought it down to 25 or 26 at the time. So would that be something to look at down the road?
Yeah, we'd like to not have those big bubbles continue through the entire elementary
Okay.
years, and so we look at that. We have to look at each situation and kind of, and the merits of each group of kids.
Right.
Because, you know, these gifted kids, they may like having 31 kids in there because they have more people that they can work with, and it may be beneficial for a gifted program. We might have some smaller classes that have larger groups of needy kids in them, and they may need to be split up before the 30
Yeah,
because
before
they
the
have
30.
less kids. And so
Sure.
we look at each situation, but in general, we don't like to see kids that have sections of 31, 32 have that all the way through their elementary experience.
Very
And
good.
I think even in your junior high, there is no separate gifted section. There's accelerated programs, so that all evens out
Right.
when you do enter 7th grade, where some of these kids, in addition to the other kids, they may require additional sections of an honors class to be opened up for them to be enrolled, just because there's other kids who'll come in, in terms of how they test for 7th and 8th grade.
Great job.
Matt, thank you for the report,
job.
all
Thank
the
you.
quality information, but all the hard work of making sure that all those kids had teachers when they came to school.
You're welcome.
Next item in my section is summer construction projects update, and ask our architect of record, Jan Taniguchi from STR Partners, to tell us a little about what happened this summer.
Good evening, President Babcock, Dr. Thompson, members of the Board of Education. We've had a very busy summer. We had 2 primary construction projects, the first being a life safety project at Sandburg, Lincoln, and Plum Grove, primarily consisting of galvanized pipe replacement. But it's not simply replacing the pipe, it triggers other things such as asbestos abatement, demolition of walls, new fixtures, accessibility, so that it becomes a very destructive and messy process. And that persisted throughout the summer. We also had a fire alarm replacement project at 5 schools, Jefferson, Sanborn, Whiteley, Jordan, and Pleasant Hill. This involved replacing the head-end equipment as well as the individual devices at these schools because the fire alarm system was antiquated and did not meet current requirements, and also was difficult to find parts for. So that was all done. I'm pleased to report both of these projects were completed and were in sufficient shape for the North Cook Intermediate Service Center to approve. And due to the work of Mr. Phillips and Van Lee, their hard work was able to put the schools in proper shape for the kids to come back to school on the 24th. In general, the fire alarm project went very smoothly. The life safety project was a little more challenging due to staffing and management issues on the part of the contractor, but we're still working through those. We're finishing up the life safety project. There are most of the punch list items. These are small ones are completed at this point. Other ones will be completed in about a month.
When you have trouble with the contractor like this one, you said it was a staffing issue. Is this somebody that you're less likely to even allow to bid in the future because of his performance?
Yes. Actually, you folks have had experience with the contractor on a prior job over at Hunting Ridge, Lake Louise, and Winston. Prior to making the award, we did have discussions with the contractor about properly staffing, making sure that it was properly managed. I did explain the challenges of the job at multiple sites. He assured me it would be handled properly, and things just they fell through the cracks.
So the quick answer is, he will not be working in the district in the future.
But the quality of the work is not in question.
We are making sure that it's being corrected as we go on right now, yes.
Thanks.
Jan, thanks very much for the report.
Okay, thank you.
Next item in my section is just an update on one of the goals that I think will be hopefully approved by the board a little later in the meeting. But the board has suggested that it's highly interested in making sure that there's two-way communication with the community, and charged me with trying to find ways that we could engage the community so that we could have that two-way dialogue, and that we'd make it as easy as possible. And the way that I'm suggesting tonight is that we're going to do a pilot program with a software solution from K-12 Insight that allows stakeholders to easily engage in any member of the District 15 community, can direct it to many people, and we will track what their comments were, the response time, and have a database set up on that we'll be able to go back and see what is of significant interest to the district. It also allows us, if there are hot topics in the district, to put those up on the top to allow people to quickly make comments. People can also send in words of praise, and so it's a way that we can listen to the community.
Sorry. It's okay.
It's a way that we can listen to the community, also give them feedback and responses, and track what's important to the community as we go forward. And so we're going to engage in this pilot program for the rest of the year. It's called Let's Talk, and Julie is going to play a video now just to give you a sense of what Let's Talk is going to afford for us.
Whether you're a superintendent, board member, or other educational leader, there are so many voices coming at you that it can be hard to figure out
Julie, can
which
you pick up that
issues most
microphone?
require your attention. And thanks to social media, these conversations are always on and open to anyone with an internet connection. Unfortunately, these conversations are also increasingly dominated by a vocal few. And ultimately, those perspectives come to define your personal brand and that of your schools. The truth is, we're living in an age where people expect answers right now, an age of snap judgments. Even the best managed schools are just one misguided tweet or blog post away from a crisis. But when and how are you supposed to deal with all this? Introducing K-12 Insight's Let's Talk, a cloud-based technology designed specifically for you and your schools. Let's Talk can be accessed from any device, anywhere, at any time. Regardless of how they're submitted, all questions, comments, concerns, and even compliments go into Let's Talk. A parent calls you about high-stakes testing. Drop it into Let's Talk. A teacher emails a concern about performance evaluation. Drop it into Let's Talk. A taxpayer tweets questioning the purpose behind a bond referendum. Drop it into Let's Talk. Let's Talk is customized so every submission is assigned to an appropriate school administrator. And K-12 Insight trains your team on how best to quickly respond and close the loop. Each department and each school has a dashboard so that you can view key metrics at any time. You'll see how many people have submitted feedback, which topics are trending, average response times, and whether those response times are quick enough for your community. In essence, a dashboard based on comprehensive data, illustrating what's really important to your stakeholders beyond the anecdotal. We know what you're thinking. Sounds good, but seems like a lot of extra work. Well, you're probably collecting feedback already, but likely in an ad hoc, disorganized way. You're no doubt familiar with misplaced sticky notes, forgotten phone calls, or emergency meetings where you realize you've been left in the dark about a small issue, which has now grown into a full-blown avoidable crisis. Let's Talk will help you streamline those efforts. By providing clarity on what's trending, Let's Talk allows you to preemptively address issues most important to your community. As schools compete for students, it's more critical than ever to manage your brand and provide first-class customer service. Most importantly, by committing to an always-on conversation through Let's Talk, you're building and nurturing community trust, the very foundation of successful schools and high-achieving students. We've helped transform hundreds of school systems nationwide. We'd love to help you, too.
Thank you. So that gives you a sense. Of course, it's a promotional video by the company, but I've checked out with a lot of other school districts that are using it. Rockford School District using it, North Shore 112, Round Lake is using it. A number of school districts in the area have used it and felt that it's been very beneficial. So it's one of the solutions that I'm going to pilot to see if it does help all of us just engage the community a little bit better and make our communication more efficient and easier to access for all those people that want to be a part of the district. So,
Can you, it does give us the option of different languages as well.
right, I think there are, if I remember right, 43 different languages, so that people, different from different cultures will still have an opportunity to engage, and we'll translate it.
And again, this is not something that I don't think any of us felt we wanted to do away with any forums that we may have or discussions, but this is a kind of a complementary piece to make sure that we reach out to as many people and they get back to us as we can. And it's also data-driven, so we'll have the data where we can keep records, keep track, be proactive on issues as opposed to reactive.
Okay. The last item in my section is a recognition. This summer we had some challenges with the Environmental Services Department. With some of the key players were not always available, and what Mr. Taniguchi referenced tonight is Craig and Van Lee. They did a great job this summer, but I'm confident that the summer projects would not have been done at a sufficient level if it weren't for Luke Hart, our warehouse manager. Luke, the maintenance supervisor, has done a fabulous job. All of his, how many years has it been? 5 years in your current position, Luke?
25.
As the maintenance supervisor?
Yeah.
25.
Just last July 2nd.
25. Well, no wonder you do it so well. So, Luke, Jan didn't reference Luke because Luke works behind the scenes and doesn't take all the glory, and he just makes sure that everything gets done. He orders parts, talks to vendors, makes sure that suppliers get things there, and organizes our crews so that they get their jobs done. And Luke, we really want to recognize you tonight for all your hard work for the last 25 years, but particularly this summer. I think this summer was extremely challenging, and you handled it superbly. And we're really, really proud of you, and we'd like to honor you with our Above and Beyond pin that we've only given to a few people because you really went above and beyond this year, and we wouldn't have had schools ready for kids if it weren't for you this summer.
Okay.
Come on up.
Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your work.
Congratulations.
Great.
Would you like to say anything?
I would. I would just, President Babcock, Superintendent Thompson, and the rest of the board members, I'd like to give you all truly a heartfelt thank you for acknowledging my efforts and just bestowing this honorable special honor on me. I do appreciate it. But I know I wouldn't be here tonight if it wasn't for the full support I have of my maintenance staff, my boss Craig, and the administration as a whole. They truly have supported me, and I just feel valued and a real privilege to work for District 15. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for my section.
Okay.
And Luke, you're free to go if you want. You know what? You got to get up early and make sure the school district.
Going late tomorrow.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 4, reading and acceptance of the minutes. If we could, there is an amendment. It is not, on the August 12th minutes, under the approval and not the approval and management of the construction firm, under the soccer program expansion. We had Mrs. Saram voting no, as in the minutes, and Mrs. Saram did indeed vote yes for that. So when we read the motion, if we could do that with the amended minutes, and those will be corrected and added to our files.
I make a motion that we approve the August 12, 2015 regular Board of Education meeting, noting the change in the vote on the approval of extracurricular soccer program expansion, as well as the August 24th special meeting and respective executive session as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Khan.
Aye.
Morrison. Aye. Seifert.
Aye.
Shram.
Aye.
Babcock.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Egbert.
Aye.
Before we move on to item 5, board discussion and reports, if there's anyone in the audience requesting to address the board this evening, we ask that you fill out the green form that is in the vestibule and give it to our secretary, Mrs. Becker. Okay, board discussion and reports. Ed Rudd.
There's a lot of information in our board packet, so I'm not going to go through that, but I would like to mention, no surprise, we still don't have a budget resolution. However, I have had discussion with some of our local representatives, without mentioning names, and the speculation is that it's very likely that we will be facing a property tax freeze, and in the long term, a change in our state funding formula. Those are still on the docket, and apparently high priorities for the governor, so certainly that remains to be seen.
Thank you. District 15 Educational Foundation.
The foundation is supporting the Fall Flower fundraiser at True Value in downtown Palatine this year for September 12th and 13th. And then to all of our staff, keep your ears out. We will be having a volleyball tournament sometime this fall. I know it's a big, the staff really enjoys it. We're just trying to put everything together. We were hoping for October, maybe a little bit close to have it done, but we will announce it shortly. So I know they get excited about the volleyball and basketball tournament.
Thank you.
Competition.
Okay. Annual board goals. So do you want to bring us up to date as to
Yeah,
the posting?
We had a board goals, proposed board goals posted on our website for over a month, and we sent out numerous invitations for people to comment, respond to the proposed goals. I think we received 6 comments from the community, and I handed those to you. Really, there was nothing in the comments that would suggest that we needed to change the goals.
So those will be brought forward later for vote?
Yes.
Okay. Any new business, old business, or other? Item 6, moving on to citizens address the board. Do we have any? Okay. Action items. Item 15-920, the personnel report. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the September 9, 2015 personnel report as presented, including the following recommendations. Recommendation for approval of termination for Luis Ardon. Recommendation for approval of termination for Fabiola Lowe. Recommendation for approval of a 7-day unpaid suspension for Mark Stella.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Babcock.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Egbert.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Morrison. Aye. Seifert.
Aye.
Shram.
No.
Okay, motion carries. Item 15-921, adoption of the 2015-16 balanced budget. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the adoption of the 2015-16 budget as presented.
Second.
Discussion?
Mike, thanks for the updates of where the different deficits were and where you had saved money, so I really appreciate the detail. Thanks very much.
That was very good.
We worked hard to get to a balanced budget. We think with the $1.6 million deficit, that really is, it's 2 one-time items. It's the purchase of the math curriculum, and what was the other one, Mike?
The extra $678,000 in capital spending over.
Yeah, we spent for the, we've asked for another $600,000 over the regular $3 million. So those 2 one-time items are the reason why we didn't get to a completely balanced budget, but we look at it as a balanced budget.
Roll call.
Chapman.
Aye.
Egbert.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Morrison. Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Sharon?
No.
Babcock?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 15922, if I could, with the adoption of the budget, there are forms that need to be signed by all the board members after the meeting, so if you'd stay behind, Mrs. Becker can help us with that. Item 15922, approval of the William Blair, of William Blair as financial advisor. The suggested motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the acceptance of the William Blair Financial Advisory Agreement dated September 8, 2015, as recommended.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I'm going to be voting no on this one, and it's, I know it's just in preparation in case we do go the route of the bond sale, but I'm not sure I agree with the sale of the bonds, because what I'm seeing is we're seeing a plan for a $25 million when the entire life safety study is $119 million, not. So, without a complete plan, I just can't justify this additional cost on the district or the taxpayer, so I will be voting no on this one.
Just to be clear, if we don't issue bonds, this company will not get any money. So,
But like I
okay.
said, I prefaced it saying it's in preparation, but just because I don't even agree with the bond aspect of it, I can't justify supporting this.
Okay. Anyone else? Roll call.
Eckberg?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Sharon?
No.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of Board of Education annual goals. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the Community Consolidated School District 15 Board of Education annual goals for 2015-2016 as recommended.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckberg?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 15924, the agreement with St. Paul United Church of Christ parking lot. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to accept the agreement for the replacement of parking lot located at 1 North Oak Street, Palatine, Illinois, between St. Paul United Church of Christ, the Palatine Park District, the Community Consolidated School District Number 15, and the Palatine Historical Society, subject to attorney review and approval.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckberg?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 15925, bid award for rock salt and triple melt. Oh, I don't even want to think about that. Here we go. Suggested motion, please.
I make a motion to award the contract for the rock salt and triple melt bid 16-002 to Conserve FS for Conde, Illinois, for a total bid award of $46,000 as presented. The recommendation is based on the bid vendor meeting specifications and being able to supply both the rock salt and the bag salt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Craig, does this price, if we have, say we have a harsh winter, hopefully not, does this bid price stay the same throughout the whole bid? If we need to go out and get additional salt, rock salt, and bag salt, does this bid price stay the same? Or do they play games down the road and say, well, we've got you, here's our price?
No, we're like, on the contract proposal that we submitted to vendors, we have a stipulated percentage escalation. So if we have a severe winter and they need another 20 or 30 tons, it's locked in at that price. We ran into a problem a couple of years ago when everybody's running around for
What was
salt.
the supply?
The supply went from, say, $55 a ton to $155 a ton, or you couldn't get it. We were fortunate that Consolidated backed the district by getting us what we needed to get through the winter in that particular regard. But we always build in a percentage escalation.
Okay.
That is part of that contract. The base bid is down to 300, but I have another 20 on top.
Okay. And the escalation price is nothing that's really outlandish, it's,
It's at that price.
okay, okay.
Unless I go over the 320, then I'm.
Then you get, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Roll call.
Seifert?
Aye.
Sharon?
Every time you say harsh winter, bite your tongue. Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckberg?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye.
Motion carries. Item 15926, approval of settlement agreement and general release Wong versus Board of Education of Community Consolidated School District Number 15 et al. May I have the suggested motion, please?
Can I read my recommendation? for the
Absolutely.
motion? I'm recommending that the board approve the settlement agreement and general release with Elizabeth Wong, the significant terms of which include a mutual release of claims, a non-disparagement clause, a confidentiality clause to the extent permitted by law, no reemployment of Ms. Wong by the board, rescission of Ms. Wong's non-renewal and acceptance of her resignation, and Ms. Wong's ability to use certain letters of reference. As part of the settlement agreement, Ms. Wong has agreed to voluntarily dismiss the pending suits filed by Ms. Wong against the board, as well as 4 individual defendants. The settlement agreement also includes a monetary payment of $260,000 to Ms. Wong, which will be paid in its entirety by the district's insurer.
I make a motion to approve the settlement agreement and general release as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Sharon?
I recuse myself.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Egbert?
Aye.
Con?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 15927, rescission of the board's action of April 22nd, 2011 to non-renew the employment contract of Elizabeth Wong and acceptance of Elizabeth Wong's resignation effective June 30th, 2011 as part of a settlement agreement. Dr. Thompson?
I'm recommending that the board rescind the action of April 22nd, 2011 to non-renew the employment contract of Elizabeth Wong and to accept Elizabeth Wong's resignation effective June 30th, 2011 as part of the settlement agreement.
I make a motion to rescind the board's action of April 22, 2011, to renew the employment contract of Elizabeth Wong and to accept Elizabeth Wong's resignation effective June 30th, 2011.
Second?
Second.
Do I?
The only comment I would make is that, the confidentiality agreement as part of the settlement allows nobody to talk about this. And so if anyone is questioned by press or anybody else, we can't really say anything.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Egbert?
Aye.
Con?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Sharon?
I recuse myself, please.
Motion carries. Item 15930, consent calendar. Does anyone wish to have anything removed from the consent calendar? May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Just
Roll call.
before just a quick discussion question. We're looking at the Chromebook pilots that I saw. Does that have all the software that an iPad does offer, similar to it?
Matt?
Yeah, the Chromebook is differentiated from the iPad on a variety of levels, and including the software piece. One of the reasons why Chromebooks are becoming a very attractive solution for school districts outside of the economics and just the economy of scale. I mean, you can get three, or you can get 3 Chromebooks for the cost of a laptop. You can get 2 Chromebooks for the cost of one iPad. Is that in terms of the online access to materials? I mean, the world online is right there, literally at kids' fingertips with the built-in keyboard. I do not sell Chromebooks as a living, it's just that I happen to be a fan. But the Google Apps for Education is something that is provided as a part of this for free. There's no licensure issues, as we've had in the past with Apple. From a management perspective, it's much more straightforward, and it basically gives teachers unfettered access to free apps. Now, ultimately, teachers are going to have to use their judgment in terms of what they want to bring into the classroom with their students, but as far as a device for content creation and collaboration, it's second to none, and we're already using it for our math testing at 2 of the pilot schools to see how that's working, and it's working beautifully.
So the only reason I bring that up is I do have a couple of concerns. I use Google Chrome extensively. That's still a huge fan of an iPad, mainly because of the security lockdowns that you can do with an iPad. So my concern is, as you go into the world of technology, it opens up a lot of avenues, especially for the younger kids. are we making sure that our security policies are being looked at as well as we go with this? Because that would be my biggest concern.
Yeah.
Because Google Play, you can download, you can't even lock that application for kids to get in. So
No.
anyone can get in.
Why don't you send me your concerns? I'm sure that the filter, though, it's going to prevent that from happening, our filter on our network system, so.
Yeah, the thing
But
is, you know, they're.
I'd like
yeah.
to make sure, so why don't you send me that
So, yeah,
information?
so as, I will send you what I have, and maybe we can take a look at that.
Great.
That's it, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Chapman?
Aye.
Bedford?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Okay, we received 3 requests and responses for information under the Freedom of Information Act during the period of August 6th, 2015 through September 3rd, 2015. On August 10th, 2015, a request was received from Shelley Parker, Data Research Partners, Austin, Texas. The response to this request was sent on August 12th. August 10th, a request received from Lynn Williamson, Interflex Bid Advantage, Wyoming, Pennsylvania. The response to this request was sent on August 19th. On August 19th, the request was received from Joseph Hart, Illinois Education Association, Palatine, Illinois. The response to this request is sent on August 24th.
Okay. Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?